The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, and it changed everything. Admiral Kim Tae stood on the bridge of the battleship Dawn of Terra, watching the strange vessel drift at the edge of the solar system. It was beautiful in an alien way. The ship curved like a shell, covered in lights that pulsed in patterns no human had ever seen. After 300 years of reaching into space, humanity had finally met someone else. Kim Tae was 58 years old. He had fought in the colony wars. He had buried friends on distant worlds. He had seen things that would break younger men, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. "Sir, they are sending a transmission," said Lieutenant Song Hana from her station. She was young, barely 26, with steady hands and calm eyes. "Audio and visual. Should I put it through?" Kim Tae nodded slowly. "Let us see who our new neighbors are." The screen flickered. A creature appeared. It was tall and thin, with skin like gray stone and eyes that glowed soft blue. When it spoke, the translation software worked quickly to convert its words. "I am High Arbiter Vox of the Galactic Council. We represent 238 species across this arm of the galaxy. We have observed your kind for some time. You have grown quickly. You have spread far. The Council has decided it is time for humanity to take its proper place among the stars." Kim Tae said nothing. He simply listened. Vox continued speaking. "The Council had rules," he explained. "Protocols. Ways of doing things that had worked for 10,000 years. Young species like humanity needed guidance. They needed structure. They needed to understand their place in the greater order. Then came the terms. Humanity would surrender all research into artificial intelligence. Such technology was dangerous and forbidden. Humanity would limit its population growth to Council-approved levels. Humanity would pay developmental taxes to support the Council's administration, and humanity would accept Council oversight of all military forces, effective immediately. "These terms are non-negotiable," Vox said. His voice was calm, almost bored. "Every species accepts them. It is the natural order. You will find the Council to be generous masters. Comply, and you will prosper. Resist, and you will learn why no species has ever defied us." The transmission ended. Kim Tae stood in silence for a long moment. Then he turned to his crew. Every face showed the same expression. Shock, anger, disbelief. "Send this to Earth Command," Kim Tae said quietly. "President Park needs to see this." 6 hours later, President Park Yuna addressed the United Earth Assembly. She was 47 years old. A former scientist who had studied stars before she led nations. She was known for her calm voice and sharp mind. But today, as she read the Council's demands aloud, even her composure began to crack. The assembly chamber held 300 representatives from every nation and colony. As Park Yuna finished reading, silence filled the room. Then someone in the back row began to laugh. It spread like fire. Within moments, the entire chamber was laughing. Not nervous laughter, not fearful laughter, the deep, genuine laughter of people who had just heard the most ridiculous thing in their lives. Park Yuna waited for the noise to fade. Then she spoke. "The Galactic Council believes we are children. They believe we will bow our heads and accept chains because they tell us to. They believe that because they are old and we are young, we must be weak." She paused. "They are wrong." The assembly voted unanimously. The decision took less than 10 minutes. Admiral Kim Tae received the order on his bridge. He read it twice to make sure he understood. Then he smiled. It was a cold smile. The smile of a man who had been waiting his whole life for this moment. "Lieutenant Song," he said, "open a channel to the alien vessel." Song Hana's fingers moved across her console. "Channel open, sir." Kim Tae straightened his uniform. He looked directly at the screen, where the gray-skinned alien waited with patient arrogance. "This is Admiral Kim Tae of the United Earth Defense Fleet. I speak on behalf of all humanity. We have received your terms. We have considered your demands." He paused. "Our answer is no." The alien blinked. Its glowing eyes flickered with confusion. "I do not understand. Please repeat your transmission. There may be an error in translation." "There is no error," Kim Tae said. "The answer is no. We will not surrender our research." We will not limit our growth. We will not pay your taxes. And we will certainly not place our military under your control. We reject your terms completely. High Arbiter Vox leaned forward. For the first time, emotion crossed his ancient face. It looked almost like fear. You do not understand what you are doing. Vox said slowly. No species has ever refused the council. It is simply not done. The consequences would be severe. Kim Tae's smile grew colder. Then perhaps it is time someone taught you a new word. The word is no. Learn it well. You will hear it often. He cut the transmission. On Nexus Prime, the Council's great station world, chaos erupted. The translation software had struggled with humanity's response. The concept of flat refusal was so foreign to Council protocols that the systems initially marked it as a malfunction, but it was no malfunction. High Arbiter Vox sat alone in his chambers that night, staring at the stars. In 10,000 years, he had never experienced anything like this. Young species begged for entry. They pleaded for protection. They accepted any terms just to gain the Council's favor. These humans had laughed at him. They had said a word his translators could barely process. And they had smiled while doing it. For the first time in 4,000 years, Vox felt something cold settle in his chest. He did not recognize the feeling at first. It had been so long since he had experienced it. The feeling was doubt. Far away, on the bridge of the dawn of Terra, Admiral Kim Tae watched the alien ship turn and flee toward the stars. Lieutenant Song Hana stood beside him. "Sir," she said quietly, "what happens now?" Kim Tae thought about his answer for a long moment. He thought about his children, his grandchildren, the billions of humans spread across 12 worlds who would never accept chains. He thought about everything humanity had built and everything they still dreamed of building. "Now," he said, "we prepare. They will come back. They will bring threats and weapons and demands. And when they do, we will teach them something their council has forgotten." Song Hana looked at him. "What is that, sir?" Kim Tae turned from the viewport. His eyes were hard as iron. "That free people do not kneel." 3 months passed after humanity said no. In the great chambers of Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council gathered to discuss the human problem. 238 species filled the massive hall. Some floated in liquid tanks, others perched on branches grown specifically for their comfort. A few existed only as projections, their true forms too large or too strange for physical attendance. High Arbiter Vox stood at the center of it all. He was old beyond measure, and he had ruled this council for longer than most species had existed. He had never failed. He had never been defied. Until now. "The humans are primitive," said one counselor, "a being made of shifting crystals. They have existed for barely a moment. They should be crushed quickly, before they become a true problem." "I agree," said another, a creature with too many eyes. "Send a fleet. Burn a few of their colonies. They will learn obedience as all species do." But not everyone was so confident. Counselor Vreth rose slowly from his seat. He was tall and slender, with pale blue skin and a voice like running water. Among the council, he was known as a moderate, a thinker. Some called him weak for it. "We should be careful," Vreth said. "These humans expanded to 12 worlds in only 3 centuries. That is faster than any species in recorded history. They built weapons we do not fully understand. They have artificial intelligence that our laws forbid. Perhaps they are not as primitive as we assume." Laughter rippled through the chamber. Ancient beings who had conquered worlds found the idea amusing. What could a young species possibly do against the might of the council? High Arbiter Vox raised his hand for silence. "Counselor Vreth speaks from caution. This is understandable but unnecessary. We will send a second delegation. This time, with appropriate escort. 40 warships should remind the humans of their proper place." The motion passed easily. The fleet was assembled within days. On Earth, Defense Minister Han Minho watched the alien ships approach on his tactical display. He was 52 years old. A quiet man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent his entire career preparing for a threat that most people thought would never come. Now it was here. 40 ships, he murmured. "They think 40 ships will frighten us. President Park Yuna stood beside him in the command center deep beneath Earth's surface. They do not know what we have built. They cannot imagine it. Han Minho nodded slowly. Project Sunbreak is ready. The defense platforms are online. Our fleet is positioned. We are as prepared as we will ever be. Park Yuna placed her hand on his shoulder. Then we wait. We say nothing. We let them wonder. This was the strategy Han Minho had designed years ago. He called it the silent doctrine. When faced with an enemy who expected negotiation and submission, give them nothing. No words. No responses. No acknowledgement at all. Let them sit in silence and imagine what might be waiting for them. It was working better than he had hoped. Captain Lee Jisoo commanded the destroyer Indomitable. She was 34 years old, small in stature but fierce in spirit. Her crew called her the Ice Queen because nothing seemed to shake her composure. Her orders were simple. Shadow the alien fleet, match their every movement. Answer no communications. Show them that humanity was watching. Lee Jisoo executed these orders perfectly. The Council fleet entered the solar system with great ceremony. They broadcast messages of peace and friendship, though everyone knew these were lies. They demanded to speak with human leadership. They warned of consequences if their calls went unanswered. Humanity said nothing. Days passed. The alien fleet waited at the edge of the solar system, growing more nervous with each silent hour. Their sensors detected strange readings they could not explain. Energy signatures that made no sense. Ships that appeared on their screens and then vanished like ghosts. Admiral Kim Tae observed everything from his flagship. He did not smile, but there was satisfaction in his eyes. They are confused, he said to Lieutenant Song Hana. Good. Confused enemies make mistakes. Song Hana looked at her displays. Sir, the alien fleet commander is getting impatient. His communications are becoming more aggressive. Let them become aggressive. Words mean nothing. When they act, we will respond. On the Council flagship, Commander Threll was losing his patience. He was a warrior from a proud species that had never known defeat. This silence insulted him. These primitive humans dared to ignore the Galactic Council. He sent message after message. He demanded response. He threatened destruction. He received only silence in return. Enough. Threll finally growled to his officers. If they will not speak, we will give them something to speak about. Target that mining station near the 5th planet. Destroy it. Commander, that facility appears to be automated. There are no life signs. I do not care. Destroy it. Show them we are serious. The Council ships opened fire. The human mining station near Jupiter exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Debris scattered across the void. For exactly 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then every system on every Council ship went dark. Lights failed. Engines died. Weapons went offline. Life support flickered before backup power engaged. 40 warships drifted helplessly. Suddenly blind and deaf in the darkness of space, Commander Threll stumbled in the sudden blackness. What is happening? Report! Someone report! Before anyone could answer, a human voice filled the bridge. It was calm and cold, without any emotion at all. This is Admiral Kim Tae of the United Earth Defense Fleet. You have made a decision. Now live, with its consequences. The lights flickered back on. Commander Threll looked at his tactical display and felt his blood run cold. Human ships surrounded them. Over 200 vessels had appeared from nowhere. Weapons locked on every Council ship. They had been invisible until this moment. They had been waiting. Captain Lee Jisoo's voice came through the communication system. Council fleet, you are ordered to power down all remaining systems and prepare for boarding. Any resistance will result in immediate destruction. You have 30 seconds to comply. Threll wanted to fight. Every instinct told him to resist, but he looked at his tactical display and saw the truth. His ships were helpless. The humans could destroy them all with a single command. Do as they say, he whispered. Power everything down. The boarding parties were professional and efficient. Human soldiers moved through Council ships with perfect discipline. They took prisoners but hurt no one. They secured weapons but did not use them. The message was clear without words. We could have killed you all. We chose not to. Captain Lee Jisoo stood before Commander Threll and the brig of the Indomitable. She studied him with cold eyes. "You will be returned to your council," she said. "You will carry a message from humanity. We did not seek conflict. You brought it to our door. We did not threaten your people. You threatened ours. Remember that when you speak to your masters." Threll felt shame burning in his chest. "What do you want from us?" Lee Jisoo turned to leave. "We want to be left alone. But since your council cannot seem to manage that, we want something else now. We want respect. And we will teach you to give it, one lesson at a time." The captured council officers were sent back to Nexus Prime in their own ships, powerless and humiliated. With them went humanity's counter-demands. Recognition as equals, payment for the destroyed station, and a formal apology broadcast to all council species. High Arbiter Vox read the demands in disbelief. His hands trembled with rage. "They dare," he whispered. "They dare to make demands of us?" Around him, the council erupted into chaos. Some called for war, others called for caution. But everyone agreed on one thing: these humans were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The captured council officers returned to Nexus Prime with fear in their eyes and humanity's demands in their hands. High Arbiter Vox read those demands and felt something he had not experienced in millennia. Pure, burning rage. "They want us to apologize," he said slowly. "They want us to pay them. They want to be treated as equals." He crushed the document in his ancient hands. These insects who have existed for barely a moment dare to demand equality with species that ruled the stars before their world cooled from fire? The council chamber erupted in outrage. 238 species screamed for war. They demanded blood. They demanded vengeance. They demanded that humanity be taught the meaning of obedience. But in a quiet corner of the chamber, Counselor Vreth watched with worried eyes. He had studied the reports from the captured fleet. He had analyzed the weapon signatures and the tactical data. What he saw frightened him deeply. The humans had disabled 40 warships simultaneously. Their cloaking technology was beyond anything the Council possessed. And they had shown mercy when they could have shown destruction. This was not the behavior of primitives. This was the behavior of a species that knew exactly how powerful it was. Vreth approached High Arbiter Vox after the session ended. "We should accept their terms," he said quietly. "These humans are not like the others. They are something new. Something we do not understand." Vox turned on him with fury in his glowing eyes. "You would have us bow to children? You would have the Council humble itself before a species that barely understands fire? I would have us survive," Vreth replied. "Pride makes poor armor against weapons we cannot counter." Vox dismissed him with a wave of his hand. "Your caution borders on cowardice, Counselor. The Council has ruled this arm of the galaxy for 10,000 years. We did not do so by accepting the demands of every young species that learned to build ships. We did so by crushing resistance until none remained. The decision was made. The Council would mobilize the largest fleet in recorded history. They would gather ships from 80 species. 12,000 warships would descend upon humanity and show them the price of defiance. Word of the coming fleet reached Earth within days. Human intelligence networks were better than the Council realized. President Park Yuna convened an emergency meeting of the War Cabinet. The room was small and windowless, deep beneath the capital city. The people gathered there controlled humanity's military forces across 12 worlds. 12,000 ships, said Defense Minister Han Minho grimly. This will not be a battle. It will be a war. Admiral Kim Tae studied the tactical projections. Our fleet numbers just over 800 combat vessels. We are outnumbered 15 to 1. General Baek Sun-ho leaned forward. He was 61 years old, with a face like weathered stone and eyes that missed nothing. The military called him the Wall because he had never lost a defensive engagement in his entire career. Numbers are not everything, Baek Sun-ho said. Our ships are faster. Our weapons are more advanced. Our crews are better trained, and we have something they do not have. What is that? Asked President Park Yuna. We are fighting for our survival. They are fighting for their pride. That difference matters. The War Cabinet approved Operation Iron Horizon. Humanity would not wait for the Council fleet to arrive. They would meet them at the border of human space. in a region of dense asteroid fields and unusual stellar formations. The terrain would favor defenders. The Council's numerical advantage would be reduced. Across human space, evacuation orders went out to border colonies. Millions of civilians moved to safer worlds. But there was no panic, no chaos. People packed their belongings calmly. They hugged their neighbors goodbye. They trusted their military to protect them, and on the ships of the fleet, human crews prepared for the fight of their lives. Captain Lee Ji-soo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching her crew work with quiet efficiency. They were young, most of them. They had never faced a real battle. But she saw no fear in their eyes, only determination. "Captain," said her tactical officer. "Council fleet, approaching the border. Estimated arrival in 6 hours." Lee Ji-soo nodded. "Signal Fleet Command. Tell Admiral Kim we are ready." Across the formation, similar messages flowed between ships. 800 vessels against 12,000. It should have been suicide. It felt like destiny. Lieutenant Song Hana had been promoted since the first encounter. She now served on the fleet's communications hub, coordinating signals between all human forces. When the Council fleet appeared on the long-range sensors, she was the one who broadcast humanity's final message. Her voice was steady as she spoke. "Galactic Council forces. This is the United Earth Defense Fleet. You have entered human space with hostile intent. We did not seek this conflict. We did not want this war, but you have chosen to bring violence to our homes. So let history record the truth. We offered peace. We offered friendship. We offered equality. You refused. Whatever happens next is on your hands, not ours." She paused. Then she continued in a voice like ice. "The United Earth Defense Fleet is ready to receive you. May God have mercy on your souls." Because we will not. The battle began at dawn, measured by Earth Standard Time. The Council fleet advanced in traditional formation, confident in their overwhelming numbers. Their admirals had crushed rebellions across the galaxy. They knew how to break inferior forces. They expected the humans to crumble under the weight of their assault. They were wrong. Commander Yoon Do-hyun led the first counterattack. He was 39 years old, a tactical genius who had spent his career preparing for exactly this moment. His squadron of 50 ships struck the Council's center fleet with devastating precision. Human weapons tore through Council shields like paper. Human ships danced around enemy fire with impossible grace. The AI combat networks that the Council had tried to ban coordinated attacks across dozens of vessels simultaneously, turning individual ships into parts of a single perfect weapon. Within the first hour, the Council lost 500 ships. Humanity lost 12. High above the battle, Admiral Kim Tae watched the chaos unfold on his tactical display. He saw patterns in the enemy movements. He saw weaknesses in their formations, and he gave orders that exploited every advantage. Squadron 7, flank left. Squadron 12, concentrate fire on that carrier group. Squadron 3, prepare to execute maneuver Sunbreak on my command. The orders flowed through the fleet. Ships moved in perfect synchronization. The Council admirals had never seen anything like it. Their forces were powerful but slow, organized but predictable. The humans fought like nothing they had ever encountered. By the 6th hour, the Council's right flank had collapsed completely. By the 8th hour, their center was crumbling. By the 10th hour, panic had begun to spread through the remaining ships. Commander Threll, who had been released after the first encounter, watched his tactical display with horror. "They are cutting through us like we are not even here. How is this possible? They are primitives. They should not be able to do this, but they were doing it." Ship by ship, squadron by squadron, humanity was taking apart the mightiest fleet in galactic history. Captain Lee Ji-soo led her squadron deep into the enemy formation. The Indomitable's weapons blazed with continuous fire. Around her, enemy ships exploded in flowers of flame. "Targets destroyed," reported her tactical officer. Moving to secondary objectives, Lee Ji-soo's face showed no emotion. "Maintain formation. Continue, advance. Leave no enemy ship capable of pursuit." The battle raged for 11 hours in total. When it finally ended, the void was filled with debris and dying ships. The Council had lost over 2,000 vessels. Humanity had lost 43. Among the wreckage, surviving Council ships fled toward the safety of their own space. They carried tales of horror with them, tales of human ships that appeared from nowhere, tales of weapons that could not be stopped, tales of a species that fought with cold precision and absolute determination. On Nexus Prime, High Arbiter Vox received the reports in stunned silence. His greatest fleet was shattered. His pride was broken. And somewhere in the depths of space, humanity waited for his next move. Counselor Vreth approached him carefully. It is not too late to negotiate. We can still find peace. Vox said nothing for a long moment. Then he spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. Contact them. See if they will talk. The message was sent through secret channels. Counselor Vreth himself composed the words. He offered conversation. He offered discussion. He hinted at terms. President Park Yuna received the message in her command center. She read it carefully. Then she looked up at her war cabinet. They want to negotiate, she said. Admiral Kim Tae's expression did not change. Do we accept? Park Yuna considered the question. She thought of the thousands who had died. She thought of the billions who still lived. She thought of the future that waited beyond this moment. We accept, she said finally. But this time, we set the terms. This time, we choose the place. And this time, they will learn what diplomacy really means. The negotiations began in the ruins of the Council's pride. Counselor Vreth traveled to human space alone, aboard a small diplomatic vessel with no weapons. It was a gesture of good faith, though he knew it was also a gesture of desperation. The Council had no choice. Their fleet was shattered. Their reputation was broken. And every day that passed, more species whispered that perhaps the old order was not as strong as it seemed. President Park Yuna received him in a station orbiting Mars. The room was simple, almost bare. A table, some chairs, no decorations, no symbols of power, just two beings trying to find a path forward. You could have destroyed our fleet completely, Vreth said. You had the power. Why did you show mercy? Park Yuna studied him with calm eyes. Because destruction was never our goal. We wanted to be left alone. Your council made that impossible. So we chose another path. What path is that? Respect. True respect. Not the false kind that comes from fear. We want the galaxy to understand that humanity is not a child species to be managed. We are equals. We deserve to be treated as such. Vreth lowered his head. The Council has never treated any species as equal. We have ruled for 10,000 years. We do not know how to share power. Then learn, Park Yuna said simply. Or watch your council crumble. Those are your only choices now. The negotiations continued for weeks. Vreth returned to Nexus Prime with proposals. He faced the fury of hardliners who still believed force could solve the human problem. He argued with ancient beings who could not imagine change. High Arbiter Vox had retreated into silence since the defeat. He attended no meetings. He issued no commands. Some said he had finally broken under the weight of failure. In his absence, the council fractured. Warhawks demanded another attack, this time with even more ships. Moderates like Vreth pushed for peace, and quietly, in the shadows, some species began to question whether the council should exist at all. The rumors spread like fire. The Galactic Council had been humiliated. A young species had defeated them soundly. If humans could do it, perhaps others could too. Perhaps the old chains could be broken. On Earth, humanity prepared for both war and peace. General Baek Sun-ho expanded the fleet. New ships rolled out of orbital shipyards at unprecedented rates. Weapons were improved. Defenses were strengthened. If the Council chose to fight again, humanity would be ready. But President Park Yuna also prepared for a different future. She worked with Counselor Vreth to draft new treaties. Real treaties, not lists of demands disguised as agreements. Treaties that recognized humanity's right to exist on its own terms. Captain Lee Jisoo continued her patrols along the border. The Indomitable had become famous throughout human space. Songs were written about her crew. Children pretended to be her officers. She ignored the attention and focused on her duty. The council ships are staying well back, reported her sensor officer one morning. They seem afraid to approach. Li Jisoo nodded. Good. Fear keeps them cautious. Caution keeps us safe. Commander Yoon Do-hyun had been promoted to Rear Admiral after his performance in the battle. He spent his days training new crews and developing new tactics. The young officers looked at him with awe. He had broken the center of the mightiest fleet in galactic history. We won one battle, he told his students. We have not won the war. Never become overconfident. The Council has resources we cannot match. If we grow careless, they will find a way to destroy us. His words were wise, but the truth was that the Council could not find a way forward at all. On Nexus Prime, the fractures widened into chasms. 3 species formally withdrew from the Council. 12 more demanded reforms. The ancient alliance that had ruled for millennia was cracking under its own weight. High Arbiter Vox finally emerged from his isolation. He called a grand session of all Council members. When he spoke, his voice was tired and old in a way it had never been before. We face a choice, he said. We can continue to fight the humans and risk losing everything we have built. Or we can accept that the galaxy has changed and change with it. The chamber erupted in shouting. Ancient beings screamed at each other in languages never meant for such emotion. Some called for Vox to step down. Others defended him. The chaos continued for hours. When silence finally fell, Counselor Vreth stood. I have negotiated with the humans. I have spoken with their leaders. I have seen their strength and their resolve. They do not want to destroy us. They want to join the galactic community as partners, not subjects. Is that truly so terrible? An old being from a proud warrior species rose to answer. If we accept them as equals, others will demand the same. Our power will fade. Our authority will crumble. We will become nothing. Vreth met his eyes. And if we fight them again, what will we become then? Dead. That is what we will become. Dead and forgotten, remembered only as the fools who chose pride over survival. The vote was close. Closer than anyone expected. But in the end, the moderates prevailed. The Council agreed to negotiate in good faith. They agreed to accept humanity's terms as a starting point for discussion. Vox watched the result with empty eyes. Then he did something no High Arbiter had done in 4,000 years. He resigned his position. I am too old for this new galaxy, he said simply. Find someone younger. Someone who can understand these humans and the change they bring. Counselor Vreth was chosen to lead the peace delegation. He traveled to human space with a dozen other counselors, representing species from across the galaxy. They came not as conquerors but as petitioners, asking for the peace they had once thought to impose. Admiral Kim Tae met them at the border. His fleet formed an honor guard around their vessels, escorting them to Earth with perfect precision. Welcome to human space, he said when Vreth's ship docked at the orbital station. We have been waiting for this day. Vreth looked at the human admiral. He saw no hatred in those eyes, no triumph, only a quiet satisfaction that things were finally moving in the right direction. I must be honest with you, Vreth said. Many on the Council still oppose this peace. They will work against it. They will try to sabotage these negotiations. Kim Tae nodded slowly. We know. We have always known. But we also know something else. What is that? That peace is not made by defeating your enemies. Peace is made by turning enemies into friends. That is what we hope to do here. Not to humiliate you, not to dominate you, but to build something new, something better. Vreth felt a strange emotion stir in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it. Hope. He had not felt hope in a very long time. Then let us begin, he said. Let us see what we can build together. The formal negotiations began the next day. President Park Yuna led the human delegation. Counselor Vreth led the Council's representatives. They sat across from each other at a simple table, surrounded by advisors and translators. Before we discuss terms, Park Yuna said, I want to say something. We did not want this conflict. We did not seek to embarrass your council or destroy your fleet. We simply refused to accept terms that treated us as less than what we are. Can you understand that? Vreth lowered his head. I can. Now. I am not sure I could have understood it before. Your people taught us a lesson we did not want to learn. What lesson is that? Vrith looked up. His ancient eyes held something that might have been wisdom. That power means nothing without respect, and respect cannot be demanded. It must be earned. Park Yuna smiled for the first time since the war began. Now we can talk. Now we can truly begin. Outside the negotiation chamber, Lieutenant Song Hana watched the proceedings on a display screen. She had been promoted again after the battle. Now she served on President Park Yuna's personal staff, coordinating communications between Earth and the fleet. She thought about everything that had happened. The first contact, the refusal, the silence, the battles, and now, finally, the peace. Do you think it will last? Asked the young officer beside her. Song Hana considered the question. She thought about humanity's strength and the Council's pride. She thought about all the ways things could still go wrong. I do not know, she admitted. But I know this. We showed them who we are. We showed them that we will not bend. And now they are sitting at our table, asking for peace instead of demanding surrender. That is something. That is a beginning. The young officer nodded. Song Hana turned back to the screen. A beginning. Yes. That was exactly what it was. 1 year had passed since humanity first said no. The galaxy had changed more in that single year than in the previous 1,000. The Galactic Council still existed, but it was not the same council that had sent demands to Earth. It was something new, something different, something that might, with time and care, become something better. The Treaty of Sol was signed aboard the human flagship Eternal Dawn. In orbit around Earth, President Park Yuna represented humanity. Councillor Vreth represented the Reformed Council. Beside them stood dozens of witnesses from species across the galaxy. The terms were simple. Humanity would be recognized as a full and equal member of the galactic community. No species would demand tribute from another. No species would impose its will by force. The Council would become a true partnership, not a hierarchy. Disputes would be solved through discussion, not threats. It was everything humanity had asked for from the beginning. Park Yuna signed her name with a steady hand. Vrith added his mark beside hers. Around them, cameras broadcast the moment to every world in Council space. Billions of beings watched as a new era began. When the ceremony ended, the delegates gathered for a reception. Human servers offered drinks and food to alien guests. Conversations flowed between species that had never spoken before. For a few hours, the galaxy felt smaller and warmer than it ever had. Admiral Kim Tae stood apart from the crowd, watching the celebration with quiet eyes. He had removed his medals for the occasion. He wore a simple uniform. Nothing more. He was not a man who sought attention. Councillor Vreth found him there, alone by a viewport overlooking Earth. A beautiful world. Vreth said, I can see why you fought so hard to protect it. Kim Tae nodded. Every world is beautiful to those who call it home. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Vreth asked the question that had burned in his mind for months. Why did you refuse our first offer? You knew we were powerful. You knew we could bring overwhelming force. You knew the risk you were taking. Why did you say no? And Kim Tae considered the question. He looked out at the blue curve of Earth, at the clouds drifting across oceans he had crossed as a young man, because the alternative was worse. He said finally, Your council offered us survival as slaves. We chose to risk death as free people. That was not a difficult choice. But how did you know you could win? Kim Tae turned to face him. His eyes were calm and clear. We did not know. We hoped. We prepared. We trained. But we did not know. We simply decided that some things are worth dying for. Freedom is one of those things. Vreth was silent for a long time. Then he spoke slowly. In 10,000 years, the Council has conquered hundreds of species. We have absorbed them into our order. We have made them obedient and productive. We believed this was the natural way of things. The strong rule, the weak obey. And now? Vreth shook his head. Now I wonder how many of those species might have become something great if we had let them grow in their own way. How many songs were never sung? How many discoveries were never made? How many futures did we destroy because we could not imagine equals, only subjects? Kim Tae placed a hand on the alien's shoulder. It was a human gesture, one that Vreth had learned to understand. "We cannot change the past," Kim Tae said, "but we can build a different future. That is what we are doing here today. That is what this treaty means." Captain Song Hana had been promoted again. She now commanded her own ship, the frigate New Dawn. It was a small vessel, not nearly as powerful as the Indomitable, but it was hers, and that mattered more than size or weapons. Her crew was mixed now. Humans made up most of the officers, but there were others. An engineer from a species that breathed methane, working in a specially designed suit, a navigator whose ancestors had charted star paths before humanity discovered fire, a communications specialist with 4 arms and eyes that could see frequencies humans could not imagine. It was strange at first. The aliens did not understand human jokes. The humans did not understand alien customs. There were misunderstandings and frustrations and moments when everyone wondered if this partnership could ever work. But slowly, carefully, they learned. They adapted. They began to see past the differences and find the similarities beneath. Song Hana gathered her crew on the bridge for a special announcement. The Treaty of Seoul had been signed. The war was officially over. Peace had come at last. "I know this year has been difficult," she said. "I know many of you lost friends in the fighting. I know some of you still carry anger toward the Council and its members. Those feelings are natural. Those feelings are human." She paused, looking around at the faces before her. Human faces, alien faces, all of them watching her with the same attention. "But we have a choice now. We can hold on to that anger and let it poison everything we build. Or we can set it aside and focus on what comes next. We can show the galaxy that humanity is more than just warriors. We are builders. We are dreamers. We are people who can make friends out of enemies." Her chief engineer, the methane breather, spoke through his translation device. "Captain, when your people refused the Council's first demand, did you think this moment would ever come? Did you imagine standing on a mixed crew like this?" Song Hana smiled. "Honestly, no. I thought we would all die fighting for our freedom. I thought the Council would crush us under their weight. I did not imagine peace. I did not imagine partnership. I only imagined survival. What changed? We won. But more than that, we won in a way that left room for something after. Admiral Kim showed mercy when he could have shown cruelty. President Park offered negotiation when she could have demanded surrender. We chose to build bridges instead of burning them. That is why we are here today." General Baek Sun-ho retired after the treaty was signed. He was 62 years old, and he was tired of war. He returned to a small house on a quiet world far from Earth, where he could watch the stars and tend a garden. But before he left, he gave one final speech to the officers who had served under him. "You have done something remarkable," he said. "You have protected humanity against an enemy that should have destroyed us. You have proven that courage and skill can overcome any odds. But that is not what makes me proud of you." He paused, looking at the rows of young faces before him. "What makes me proud is what happened after we won. We did not become conquerors. We did not force our will on the defeated. We offered peace. We offered friendship. We showed the galaxy that humanity could be strong without being cruel. That is the legacy I want you to carry forward. That is what makes us truly great." Years would pass. The galaxy would continue to change. New challenges would arise. Old wounds would heal slowly. There would be setbacks and disappointments and moments when the peace seemed fragile. But something fundamental had shifted. The Galactic Council was no longer a tool of domination. It was becoming a true community, where every species had a voice and every voice mattered. Humanity had taught them that. Not through conquest, but through example. Not through force, but through faith in something greater than power. On the bridge of the New Dawn, Captain Song Hana looked out at the stars. Behind her, her mixed crew worked together in easy harmony. Human and alien, different but united. Separate but together. "Captain," said her navigator, "we have received new orders from Fleet Command. A trade dispute near the outer colonies. They want us to mediate." Song Hana smiled. "Mediate. Not fight. Not threaten. Just help two groups find common ground. Set course," she said. "Let us see if we can make some new friends." The ship turned toward the distant stars. Songhana thought about everything that had brought them to this moment. The fear, the courage, the sacrifices, the victories, the decision, made 1 year ago, to refuse submission and demand respect instead. They had wanted to kneel us, she thought. They came with chains and called them treaties. They came with demands and called them invitations. And we said no. Just one word, the most powerful word in any language. Now look at us. Look at what we have built from that single act of defiance. Far away, on a station at the edge of council space, Councillor Vreth sat alone in his chambers. He was old now, even by the standards of his long-lived species. He did not have many years left, but he had seen something wonderful before the end. He had seen a galaxy begin to change. He had seen enemies become partners. He had seen pride give way to respect. A young aide entered his chamber. "Counselor, you have a message from Earth, from Admiral Kim Tae." Vreth smiled. Kim Tae had also retired, but they stayed in contact. Two old beings who had found unexpected understanding. "Read it to me." The aide activated the message. Kim Tae's voice filled the room, warm and familiar. "Old friend, I hope this finds you well. The cherry blossoms are blooming on Earth. You should come see them before they fade. There is beauty in things that do not last forever. Perhaps that is what makes them precious." Vreth closed his eyes. Cherry blossoms. He had never seen them. Perhaps he never would. But the invitation meant more than any treaty, more than any signed document. It meant that they had truly become friends, and that was worth everything. That was worth the pain and the fear and the long nights of doubt. That was worth the war, because in the end, that was what it had all been for. Not power, not victory, not even survival, just the chance to meet as equals, just the chance to shake hands instead of bow, just the chance to call an enemy a friend. The galaxy had learned a new word because of humanity. The word was no. But perhaps they had learned an even more important word. The word was we.